Hello, welcome to Learn English with Technology podcast series.
Episode 24, Physical English Learning Revolution. Move your way to fluency.
So today, we're going to be looking at a really cool way
Yeah.
to learn English.
Absolutely.
And it involves your whole body.
Yeah.
Instead of just like sitting at a desk with a textbook.
Right.
We're going to explore how movement can actually like help you learn and remember English words and phrases.
Yeah, better.
Yeah,
Better.
that's right. We're talking about tapping into your body's natural learning abilities.
Yeah.
By using movement and physical activities.
It sounds way more fun than just memorizing flashcards.
Yeah.
So how does this actually work?
Well, think about how you learned to ride a bike.
Yeah.
You didn't just read a book about it. You actually got on the bike and practiced.
Right.
And even though it might have taken a few falls, eventually your body just knew how to do it.
Right.
That's muscle memory.
Okay, so how does muscle memory help with English?
When you combine physical actions with language,
You're essentially creating multiple pathways in your brain for that information.
okay.
So instead of just seeing a word on a page, you're also experiencing it with your body, which makes it much more memorable.
So if I'm learning the word jump,
Yeah,
I should actually jump while saying it.
exactly. And there's actually a teaching method based on this called total physical response, or TPR.
Okay.
Studies have shown that students who learn through TPR often have better retention and recall than those who just learn through traditional methods.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like building a 3D memory instead of just a flat picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there other benefits besides just better memory?
Absolutely. Movement can also help with rhythm and pronunciation,
Yeah.
which can be tricky for English learners.
Mhm.
When you move your body to a beat, you're naturally creating a rhythm that can help you internalize the sounds of English.
So it's like turning language learning into a dance.
Exactly. And this can be especially helpful for learning things like verb tenses, where the rhythm of the sentence changes slightly. You can actually feel the difference in your body as you move.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is all starting to make sense to me.
Good.
But what about learning with other people?
Yeah.
Does movement play a role there?
It definitely does. Have you ever noticed how you unconsciously mirror the movements of someone you're talking to?
Yeah.
That's because of something called mirror neurons,
Oh.
which fire both when we do an action and when we see someone else doing it.
So if I'm practicing English with a partner
Yeah,
and we're both doing the same movements, we're actually learning from each other's bodies.
exactly. It creates a shared experience that strengthens the learning for both of you.
Wow.
And this doesn't just have to be in person.
Right.
Think about online language classes where you can see your teacher and classmates.
Yeah.
You can still benefit from that mirroring effect, even through a screen.
Wow. So many possibilities.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how movement can add a whole new dimension to language learning.
Yeah.
But I do have a question. How do we actually put this into practice?
Okay.
Are we talking about specific exercises or activities?
There are so many ways to incorporate movement into your English learning.
Right.
Some are simple, some are more complex,
Right.
but they can all be really effective.
Let's dive into some examples.
Sure.
What are some simple exercises we can start with?
One of the easiest ways is to simply act out verbs as you learn them.
Okay.
So if you're learning action words like walk,
Yeah.
run,
Mhm.
jump, or dance,
Right.
actually do those actions as you say the word.
That sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What about something a little more challenging?
You could try creating a human sentence activity.
Okay.
Imagine a group of people,
Yeah.
and each person represents a word in a sentence.
Okay.
They have to physically arrange themselves in the correct order to form a grammatically correct sentence.
So if the sentence was, the cat sat on the mat,
Yeah.
the people would have to move around until they were standing in the right order.
Exactly. And you could make it even more dynamic by calling out different sentences
Oh, yeah.
and having them scramble to rearrange themselves.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun way to practice sentence structure and get everyone moving.
That's a great idea for a classroom or even a study group.
Yeah.
What about something you could do on your own?
You could try environmental vocabulary through movement.
Okay.
The idea is that you walk around a space
Mm-hmm.
and you can only move towards something after you've described it correctly in English.
So if I want to walk towards a tree, I have to say something like, I'm walking towards a tall green tree with spreading branches.
You got it. It encourages you to pay attention to your surroundings.
Yeah.
And use descriptive language. You're
Yeah.
turning an ordinary walk into a vocabulary treasure hunt.
I like that.
And this works both indoors and outdoors.
I love that.
Yeah.
It seems like any space can become an English learning lab with a little creativity.
It really can.
Speaking in space, do you need a lot of room to do these movement activities?
That's a great question.
What if you're in like a small apartment or classroom?
You definitely don't need a fancy studio or a huge space.
Right.
To benefit from movement-based learning, even a small room can work.
So how do you make the most of a limited space?
Well, for starters, you can divide the room into different learning zones.
Okay.
Each zone could represent a different English environment.
Okay.
For example, one corner could be the kitchen zone, where you practice cooking vocabulary
Okay.
and mime actions like chopping, stirring, and baking.
And another corner could be the office zone, where you practice vocabulary related to work
Exact.
and maybe even role play professional scenarios.
Exactly. You can get really creative with it. And don't forget about adaptations.
Yeah.
If it's a rainy day and you can't go outside, designate a weather zone
Okay.
where you act out different weather conditions like drizzling, pouring, or storming.
I love that idea. It's like turning your living room into a mini English world.
And even if you're in a really tiny space, you can still incorporate movement.
Right.
Think about using hand gestures. Yeah.
Facial expressions or even just small movements with your fingers or toes.
So even if you're stuck at your desk, you can still get your body involved in the learning process.
Exactly. The key is to be creative and adapt the activities to your space and your needs. There's always a way to incorporate movement no matter where you are.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about turning our homes into mini English worlds.
Right.
And adapting to different spaces.
But what about those times when you're not at home? Maybe
Ugh.
you're commuting or waiting in line.
Mm-hmm.
Can you still use movement to learn English on the go?
Absolutely. You don't need a lot of space or fancy equipment to incorporate movement.
Okay.
Even subtle actions can make a difference.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, let's say you're learning vocabulary related to transportation.
Okay.
Instead of just reading the words bus, train, and car,
Mm-hmm.
imagine yourself performing those actions.
Okay.
You could mime opening a car door, grabbing a train handle,
Right.
or pressing a bus stop button. So you're basically turning those everyday objects into mental prompts for the English words.
Exactly. And those little micro movements can help solidify the connection between the word and the action,
Right.
even if no one else can tell what you're doing.
That's like having a secret language workout.
Yeah.
Are there any other sneaky ways to use movement when you're out and about?
Definitely think about body language.
Okay.
Different cultures have different ways of expressing themselves non-verbally.
Like how some cultures greet each other with a bow while others shake hands.
Exactly. As you learn English, pay attention to those cultural nuances in body language.
Oh, okay.
You can practice them discreetly, even if it's just a slight nod of the head or a change in posture.
Okay.
It'll help you internalize those cultural cues and become a more confident communicator.
So we're not just learning vocabulary, we're learning how to use our bodies to communicate effectively in English.
Precisely. It's about becoming more fluent in all aspects of the language,
Right.
both verbal and nonverbal.
This is all so fascinating. It really opens up a whole new way of thinking about language learning.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, sometimes motivation can be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
How can we make sure we stick with this movement-based approach
Yeah.
and actually see results?
That's where technology comes in.
Okay.
There are so many cool tools and apps
Okay.
that can help you track your progress, stay motivated, and even make learning English feel like a game.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these tech tools.
Sure.
What are some of your favorites?
One of the most exciting developments is motion capture technology.
Okay.
There are apps now that use your phone's camera to analyze your movements and give you feedback.
Wow. So I could actually see myself on screen
You got it.
as I'm practicing those action verbs.
And the app can tell you things like whether you're using the correct posture,
Yeah.
speed, and even the subtlest nuances of the movement.
It's like having a personal English movement coach right in your pocket.
Yeah.
What other cool tech is out there?
Another area that's really taking off is virtual reality language learning.
VR. That sounds super futuristic.
Yeah.
How does that work for English?
Imagine putting on a VR headset and being transported to an immersive English-speaking environment.
Wow.
You can interact with objects, have conversations with virtual characters,
Okay.
and even role-play different scenarios.
So I could be in a virtual coffee shop, ordering a drink, and chatting with the barista in English.
Exactly. And because you're actively engaging with the environment, the learning becomes so much more memorable.
Wow.
It's not just about seeing and hearing the language anymore.
Right.
It's about feeling it and experiencing it with your whole body.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Are there any VR apps you recommend?
There are a growing number of VR language learning apps out there,
Okay.
and they're getting better all the time.
Huh.
Some focus on specific skills like pronunciation or vocabulary,
Okay.
while others offer more immersive experiences.
So much to explore.
Yeah.
What about something a little more low-tech? Are there any tools that don't require a headset or a special app?
Absolutely. Your smartphone's fitness tracker can be a great tool for tracking your progress with movement-based learning.
Wait, really? I thought those were just for counting steps and calories.
They can definitely do that, but they can also track things like how much you're moving during your English practice sessions.
Oh,
You can set goals for yourself, like I'm going to spend 30 minutes today actively practicing verbs of motion,
okay.
and then use your tracker to see if you hit your target.
So it's like gamifying the learning process
Yeah.
and adding a little friendly competition with yourself. I love it.
Yeah.
What other tech tips do you have?
Don't underestimate the power of online group coordination.
Okay.
There are virtual movement classes where learners from all over the world can practice English together in real time.
So even if I'm learning English on my own, I can still be part of a community.
Exactly. And that sense of community can be really motivating. Plus, you get to see how other people are incorporating movement into their learning,
Right.
which can spark new ideas.
This is all so inspiring.
Yeah,
Technology really opens up a world of possibilities for making language learning more engaging and effective.
it does.
But I do have one concern.
Okay.
What about people who might have physical limitations or disabilities?
That's a great point.
Can they still benefit from movement-based learning?
Absolutely. One of the great things about this approach is that it can be adapted for just about anyone.
So how do you make it accessible for everyone?
Well, the first step is to remember that movement doesn't have to mean jumping around or doing complicated exercises.
Okay.
Even subtle movements like hand gestures or facial expressions can be incredibly effective.
So for someone who uses a wheelchair, for example,
Right.
they could still practice vocabulary by using their hands and face to express different words and concepts.
Exactly. And there are many other ways to adapt activities.
Yeah.
You can use chairs instead of standing, focus on upper body movements,
Yeah.
or even just visualize the movements if physical limitations prevent actual motion.
It's all about finding what works best for the individual.
Exactly.
And what about age? Are there specific adaptations for different age groups?
Absolutely. For younger learners, you'll want to incorporate games, songs, and activities that appeal to their energy levels.
And what about older learners? Do you have any tips for them?
For older learners, you might choose chair-based exercises or activities that focus on gentle movements.
Okay.
You can also tailor the activities to their interests and life experiences.
It sounds like there's a way for everyone to get involved, no matter their age or physical abilities.
Exactly. And don't forget about cultural sensitivity.
Right.
It's important to be aware of cultural differences in body language and to adapt activities accordingly.
So we need to be respectful of different comfort levels and make sure everyone feels comfortable participating.
Yeah.
What about those of us who might feel a little shy or self-conscious about moving in front of others?
Uh-huh.
Any advice for overcoming that initial awkwardness?
Of course, if you're feeling shy, you can start with invisible movements.
Mhm.
These are subtle actions that no one else can see,
Right.
but that still engage your muscles and help you learn.
Like what?
Think about tiny finger movements, slight head nods, or even just tensing and releasing different muscle groups as you say a word or phrase.
So you're still getting the benefits of movement,
Yeah.
even if no one else can tell what you're doing. That's a great tip.
And remember, learning a language is a journey, not a race.
Yeah.
Start small, find what works for you, and don't be afraid to experiment.
I like that.
The more you move, the more you'll learn.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm already thinking about all the different ways I can incorporate movement into my own English practice.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious about something.
Okay.
We've talked about the benefits for everyday language learners.
Uh,
But can this approach also be used for more advanced or specialized purposes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, movement-based learning can be incredibly powerful for professional contexts and specialty skills.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Imagine a surgeon learning complex medical terminology while practicing the precise hand movements required for a specific procedure,
Okay.
or a pilot mastering aviation vocabulary while simulating the actions of flying a plane.
So the movements become an integral part of learning the technical language and skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating a multi-sensory learning experience that deeply embeds the information in their minds and bodies.
That's amazing. Are there any other examples of how this is being used in professional settings?
Absolutely. Some companies are using movement-based simulations to train employees in safety procedures, customer service protocols, and even leadership skills.
So instead of just reading a manual or watching a video, Employees are actively engaging with the information through movement.
Exactly. And this type of active learning leads to better retention, improved performance, and even increased confidence.
This is so exciting. It sounds like movement-based learning has the potential to revolutionize not just how we learn languages,
Yeah.
but how we approach learning and training in general.
I completely agree. It's a powerful tool that can unlock new levels of understanding skill and expertise.
Hey.
And it's only just beginning to be explored.
We've been talking about how movement can supercharge language learning
Yeah,
and even professional training.
absolutely.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Right.
I want to highlight how this approach can also benefit you in some unexpected ways.
Okay.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of unexpected benefits are we talking about?
Well, think about how movement can affect your mood and energy levels.
Right.
When you're physically active, your brain releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting and stress-reducing effects.
So learning English could actually become a fun and energizing activity
Yes.
instead of a chore.
Exactly. And that positive association can make you more likely to stick with it.
Yeah.
Plus, when you're feeling good and energized, you're more receptive to learning new things.
That makes sense. Are there any other unexpected benefits?
Movement can also help you develop a deeper understanding of cultural nuances. As you learn and practice different gestures and movements, you become more aware of how body language varies across cultures.
So it's not just about learning the words. It's about understanding how those words are expressed physically in different parts of the world.
Precisely. It's about developing a more holistic understanding of the language and culture.
That's really insightful.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how movement can benefit language learning in so many ways, both big and small.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about assessment.
Okay.
How do you actually measure progress with this approach?
Yeah.
Is it just about how well you can act out a word?
That's a great question. Assessment with movement-based learning is all about creativity and finding what works best for you.
So what are some ways to track progress?
One simple approach is self-assessment.
Okay?
You can record yourself performing certain actions or movement sequences,
Right.
and then watch the videos back to see how you've improved over time.
So kind of like creating a movement journal
Yeah.
where you track your progress visually.
Exactly. You can also use peer assessment, where you practice with a partner and give each other feedback.
And I bet technology can play a role here too.
Definitely, there are apps that can analyze your movements
Okay.
and give you detailed feedback on your posture, speed, and accuracy.
So it's like having a virtual movement coach.
Exactly. And these apps can also track your progress over time,
Okay.
so you can see how far you've come.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on language learning.
Awesome.
But before we say goodbye, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
I love challenges. What is it?
I challenge everyone listening to find one everyday activity they can turn into a movement-based learning opportunity.
Ooh, I like that.
It could be anything from cooking dinner to walking the dog.
Okay.
Get creative and see how you can use movement to boost your English skills.
That's a fantastic challenge. And remember, the key is to have fun with it.
Yeah.
The more you enjoy the process, the more you'll learn.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been truly eye-opening.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment on our podcast. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, keep moving and keep learning.